Hi, welcome to Oma's Kitchen.
Oregano.
On a cold winter morning, let's put together a big pot of pinto beans and ham, and we're going to have it with chow-chow and cornbread. Yesterday, I sorted 2 1-pound bags of pinto beans. And to do that, I opened them up on a cookie sheet covered in parchment paper. And I just look through each bag and I pull out any bits of beans or ones that don't look so happy or any stones or twigs. These are mechanically harvested, so you can't count on it only being really good beans. You have to kind of go through each bag. And that's really all I'm looking for, is ones that I don't want to end up in my pot. I even pull out ones that just are broken in half and have a little spot on them, like this one, just to make sure that the ones that go in my pot are full beans that are in good shape. Then I want to rinse them really well, so I have a strainer here, and I'm going to use the parchment paper to roll them up and catch most of them and pour them into the strainer. Now I'm going to take them to the sink and rinse them. I want to make sure they're very clean. And then I will bring them back and add them into a large bowl with a lid. I'm going to start with 4 cups of fresh filtered water. This is just cold water. But I'm doing 2 bags worth, so this is a good start. And I will do the same thing with the second bag. I go through them, pick out any ones that don't look happy, put them in my strainer, rinse them really well, and add them to the bowl. At the end, I want the water to sit a good 2 inches above the beans. So I ended up adding about 8 cups of water to this. Cover it over and let it sit overnight. What's going to happen is your beans will soften and soak up some of the water before you try to cook them. Now we're going to cut up some onions and carrots. My grandmother's recipe, I think, was mostly just pinto beans, and sometimes she would use ham hocks, also known as pig knuckles, but I don't do that. I use big pieces of ham. And I add some onion and carrots to mine. I think it provides a better flavor to the beans as they're cooking. So we're just going to chop these up. They don't have to be too fine, just pieces. And I'm going to chop the onion rather chunky as well. I'm just going to pile all that into one bowl. So just a couple of carrots and a good-sized sweet onion. Big chunky pieces. Okay, so that's our veggies for our pot of beans. And then I'm going to work with the ham. Now I've got some double smoked European style bacon here. You can find it at the meat counter in your grocery store. It's raw, so it has to go under the broiler for a few minutes on both sides to let it crisp up. So while that's in, I move on to the ham steaks. I like the ham steak that has the bone still in it, but I was unable to find that at the store this time. So I just chose a couple of other ham steaks. I like to add a little margarine or butter on top and a little bit of honey. And then I stick them under the broiler for a good 10 minutes and let them caramelize before I cut them up and add them to my beans. I think it provides a really nice flavor when they're cooking down with the beans. Okay, so here's our honeyed ham steaks, and they go under the broiler when the European bacon comes out. And then I cut off a lot of the fat from the European style bacon and just leave myself large chunks of the meat. Here's the beautiful caramelized ham steaks. And we're going to chop those up in big chunks and add those to the pot with our bacon and our beans. Okay, so our beans have been soaking overnight, and you'll notice it no longer has 2 inches of water over top of the beans. They've soaked up a lot of it. And that's what we want. We want them to soften a little bit in the cold, fresh water before we go to cook them. And I'm going to rinse them in my colander. This takes some of the starch out of the beans. You know, the stuff that gives you gas when you eat it. So those have been rinsed off. Now I'm going to make some broth for the beans to cook in. I'm going to use a mixture of chicken bouillon and a sautéed onion bouillon. And I'm going to use about a tablespoon of both, but be careful how much you use. It is salty, so you don't want to add too much salt to your beans. About a tablespoon of each one. And then I'm going to add some really hot water and get it mixed together. I'm going to start out with 4 cups of broth, and then I will add extra water into the pot once I get everything in there. That muddy tan color is what I'm looking for in this broth. It's the mixture of the sautéed browned onions and the chicken broth. And that's beautiful. That'll soak into the beans. Now all of my soaked and rinsed beans go into the crock pot. The veggies on top, the ham and bacon that I've cut up, all of that goes in on top. Then I will add my broth. Then I will add some extra boiling water to bring the liquid level up a little bit. And then I will start to add my spices. You can see them all sitting there. I'm going to start with smoked paprika, and I'm going to add a good tablespoon or 2 of that, a couple of teaspoons of chili powder, a little bit of salt, but not much, and some cracked black pepper. That's about a teaspoonful. And I'm going to add some onion powder. Now, I already have onion broth, but I'm going to add a little bit of onion powder on top. and some parsley to lighten the whole thing up a little bit. I'm going to mix that in. I will add a little bit more boiling water to the pot. Now, to cook these in the crock pot, you're going to want them to cook for 6 to 8 hours. You can speed up the process by just cooking them in a soup pot, and that will take 2 to 3 hours. I like using my crock pot for this recipe because I think the flavor ends up better. The longer the beans have to cook in with the vegetables and the ham, it does take some time, but it comes out great. If we're going to have it for dinner, I have it assembled and in the crock pot by 10 o'clock in the morning. I will add a little more boiling water about halfway through the cooking time and stir it in with the beans and the broth. Another 3 to 4 hours to go. And I'm going to make some cornbread while I'm doing that. In case you missed that video, I will post a link in the description. This is my fluffy cornbread, and I made that about an hour before the beans and ham were finished cooking. It comes out so nice. Smear a little margarine or butter on top, and it's great to dip into the pinto beans and ham. You get the broth all in it. It's great. Now, to make this a truly southern dish, you have to try it with Chow-Chow. This is a southern-style relish made from cabbage and pickled peppers, and it's wonderful. You can get a sweet or a hot version. I had to order these online because they're hard to find where I live. My grandmother loved Chow-Chow, but we often couldn't find it, so other good options are pickle relish and pickled jalapenos. Make sure you get a good scoop of that wonderful broth into your bowl as you're plating. So you want both Chow-Chows on here, right? Mm-hmm. How much hot and how much sweet?
Half and half.
Half and half? A spoonful or 2?
2.
Okay, and the sweet? Big old pile of it on there. And then, would you like a peppercini?
Yes.
And do you want a little pile of cheese?
Yes.
Okay. Like this. And we'll stick a peppercini on top. 1 or 2?
1. Yeah.
And then your cornbread.
Mm-hmm.
You've got a spoon. How about a couple of slices of orange, too?
Okay.
And there you have it, pinto beans and ham with Chow-Chow and cornbread, also known as soup beans in the South. Thank you for joining me in Oma's Kitchen. If you enjoyed the video, please don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll upload more tasty videos soon, and a special shout out to Moon Pie and Lil Bit. Till next time.